Welcome to Hope Natural Health, the podcast inspiring you to be your best version. Join me, your host, Dr. Erin, naturopathic doctor, dog mom, cancer survivor, and girl boss weekly as we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Welcome back to the Hope Natural Health podcast, where I try to get you healthy the right way. Last week, we talked about the transition into menopause, and I had a special guest, Allison, with us. So make sure you go back and take a listen to that one. This week, I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 reasons why you should track your menstrual cycle and why it's important. So in practice, I ask every single one of my ladies, do you track your cycle? And I would say probably 8 out of 10 whip out their phone and say, oh yes, let me look at my app. We'll talk about some different ways you can track in pieces or devices or whatever you can use to track here at the end. But first, I want to explain why it's important and why we should track our cycle. So one, if we track our cycle, we're going to notice any irregularities that might come up. Sometimes women don't even know when their cycle's coming, or it might be late and then it's early. It's just super irregular. So by tracking, we'll be able to understand how long our cycle is, and we are now in better tune with our body so that when something is off, we are more likely to be aware of that abnormality. And we won't know unless we track. And it's so important because it might seem like it was just last week's cycle or last month's cycle, but it was actually like 4 cycles ago because time is flying so quickly. So making sure that we track will help us, better understand the irregularities. Number 2, you're actually going to be able to know and feel and be able to understand when you ovulate or when you should ovulate. So you either ovulate or you don't. There's really no in between. So if you're trying to make a baby, this is super important. And also if you're not trying to make a baby, we want to make sure that we know when we're ovulating. Because as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, there's only a certain window or time frame that you are able to get pregnant. So if we understand when we ovulate, then we can abstain from intercourse during that time and have a very minimal chance of becoming pregnant. Ovulation is very important to the menstrual cycle and menstrual health. So making sure that if we track, we know when we ovulate. And I have a podcast episode all about ovulation, so go back and find that one. Usually on a typical 28 to 30 day cycle, we're ovulating around days 14 through 16. So it's usually about 7 to 10 days after your menstrual cycle ends is when you should ovulate. You can also track ovulation other ways by using like basal body temperature devices. You can use an Oura ring, which has a temperature tracker in it that's linked with natural cycles. You can buy ovulation predictor kits. There's other ways to track ovulation. I wouldn't solely go off an app because it's not 100% accurate. So that's where we need a second and third backup to make sure that we do ovulate, whether that's tracking cervical mucus or your basal body temperature. And third reason why you want to track your cycle is so that we can understand and embrace your mood and productivity. So did you know that your hormones will fluctuate throughout your cycle? So this is a good example of something I'm going through right now, is that I'm in the first half of my cycle and I have so many things on my to-do list, but I have zero motivation to do it. And I'm not beating myself up and saying, oh, why am I not getting anything done? Because I'm in the first phase of my menstrual cycle, and this is the planning and creativity phase. So I'm using this time to really get my ducks in a row, per se, putting down, things that I need to get done, maybe have a plan of attack so that when the second half of my cycle comes, this is what I like to say, the get stuff done phase. So I'm giving myself grace right now because I'm not really getting a lot done, but I'm making my plan and coming up with ideas and thoughts and things that are going to better serve me during this time, because that's what my hormones want me to do. Estrogen is starting to rise. Testosterone is starting to rise right in this first half of the cycle. So you can really use your cycle and your hormones to work for you. And you'll be able to understand this better if you track and know what phase of cycle you're in, so that when something comes up in life, you're not beating yourself up for not getting it done. And you could be like, where am I in my cycle? And then you can likely understand why this is happening. So if you're new to tracking or have never tracked or haven't tracked in a long time, I actually created a period productivity planner for this reason. And I love it because it teaches you about your cycle, kind of what I just mentioned about the phases of our cycle and the hormones that are most active and that can help boost your productivity or boost your creativity or basically help you use your hormones to work for you. So you don't really need two different planners either, because there's a section in the planner that you can write down your things to do and all of the things that you need to get accomplished for that week based on your cycle. So this planner is super helpful for you to make sure that you can plan ahead and say, all right, well, this is ovulatory time. I'm going to make sure I schedule, say, podcast recording, or maybe go to a networking group, or maybe approach my boss for that raise, because you can use testosterone and estrogen when they're at their peak to really put yourself out there. And then the last half of the cycle, like I mentioned, is really the get stuff done and productivity phase. So you can use the first half to prepare for the second half, and then use your hormones to really get stuff done. And I swear, if you understand this, it works, because you are just a fireball with your productivity and just checking things off left and right, because that's what progesterone wants you to do. It's telling you to get stuff done. And then you can give yourself grace when it's around your menstrual cycle at the time that you need to rest. And, give yourself space to, just kind of chill and give your body a little rest, because it is going through, a good energy sucking per se with your menstrual cycle. So those are a few reasons why you need to track. We can notice more irregularities. You'll be able to tell if you ovulate or not ovulate or around that time. So if you're trying to make a baby or not make a baby, you'll have a better understanding of that window of time. And third, you can understand and embrace your mood and productivity based on where you are in your cycle. But you're not going to know any of this unless you track and understand that. So if you want to snag my period productivity planner, there's a link in the show notes here. You can Google it on Amazon. Just type it in the search bar, period productivity planner. You'll find it. And if you use it, I would love to hear what you think about it. And I hope that this was helpful. And if anything, you can start tracking your cycle so you can better understand it better for you. We will see you next week.